If you're planning your first or your next in-person workshop, seminar, retreat, then this episode is for you. For me, there's nothing more exhilarating, more fulfilling, more rewarding than an in-person event. I think especially after the pandemic years, 2020, 2021, and to some extent, even 2022, there's something about being in the room with somebody, about sharing an experience, about a hug, a smile, a nod that can't be done over Zoom. Now, I've attended many, more than I care to remember, hours of training sessions, of workshops, of seminars, of boot camps, even retreats via Zoom. Now, the pandemic years didn't allow us to do any more than that, and that's fine. But we're in a totally different season now. And in this season, we're getting in rooms, we're giving each other hugs, we're sharing experiences, we're speaking to each other as we hold hands. And as I said, for me, there's nothing in the training field that is more transformative, more experiential than that. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing my 7-step framework on how you can plan and host a truly transformational and experiential event, if that's what you're doing, an in-person event. Between June 2022 and today, I have hosted 16 in-person one-day and multi-day workshops, boot camps, seminars, and retreats. Retreats internationally, and those have been multi-days, typically 5 to 6 days. And the one-day workshops have been, a lot of them have been in the UK, some in London, some outside of London. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you exactly the framework that I have developed to help me host stunning retreats in stunning destinations, not just beautiful to look at, but beautiful to experience, beautiful to be a part of, and beautiful because of the difference it makes in people's lives. So in a couple of weeks, I'll be hosting my 17th event in Paris, which is a 3-day event. But let's go back to where this all started. So it was September of 2021. We had been in lockdown for over a year, and for lots of people, for lots of people, they still couldn't travel for whatever reason. At that time, I was being coached one-on-one by Lisa Nichols. And I remember her saying to me, it was in April of 2021, she said to me on a coaching call, she says, I'm hosting a retreat in Nassau, Bahamas in September. Would you like to come? And I said, Lisa, say no more. Because I was ready. I was ready to catch flights. I was ready to get in the room. I was hungry. In the words of Les Brown, I was hungry. So anyway, in September 2021, I jumped on a plane from London to Nassau, Bahamas, and we were locked and loaded for 6.5 days in Nassau. That was my first time in the Bahamas. And the experience was so deep that at the end of it, I said to Lisa, I want to take women on the same journey, both externally and internally, that you've just taken us through. This is what I want to do. This is the way I want to serve and support my clients. Zoom is great, but the room is greater, I said. Now, you may be wondering, well, what actually happened in 6.5 days in Nassau that gave me this revelation? I think it's probably a mixture of different things. I think, to be fair, it was one, being away from home, where you are, where I am. I was then forced, if you like, to not worry about the small things like, offloading the dishwasher, or loading the washing machine, or what am I making for dinner, or what do I need to get from the supermarket? The everyday things that can sometimes um, be front and center of our minds wasn't part of my remit for that week. I was there, and I was there fully present, both physically and mentally. So just being away from home. I think it was, I forget who said, sometimes we have to retreat in order to advance. There's something about being away from home physically that helps you to disconnect also mentally. I think, anyway. I don't know if you agree. Let me know if you agree. So, anyway, being in the Bahamas, being in the same space with a few women who were also building a business. So, we were speaking the same language. Now, this retreat was a combination of personal development and business strategy. The business was probably about, to be honest, 20 to 30%. The vast majority was personal development. And you may wonder, well, why personal development and business? Here is the thing. As you elevate your life and your business, one thing that I can say is, you will find that you will become a different person as you grow in your business. You will be required to become a different person. In my coaching program, one of my pillars, I have a four-step pillar, a framework. The second pillar is developing the messenger. Developing the messenger. The third pillar is developing the message. So even before you develop your message, you have to develop the messenger. And who's the messenger? It's you. You're the messenger. And I think it was Les Brown who said, when as you develop your message, as you work on your message, don't forget to work on the messenger. I often say that you're not just the messenger, you're also the message. That means that your whole life is part of what you're saying. So, anyway, it was 70%, I would say, approximately personal development, working on ourselves, working on our past, working on our beliefs, our self-beliefs, challenging some of our thoughts, our thought patterns. And then towards the end of the 6.5 days together, we then worked on the business side of things. This was with Lisa Nichols. And as I said, at the end of that experience, it was so transformative for me that I said, I want to do this with my clients. And that was how the idea of running retreats was born. And so Lisa said to me, okay, I will put you in touch with Shay. Shay was running Lisa's retreats at that time, Lisa's in-person events at that time. She still is. And so I had a call with Shay a few weeks later when I came back from Nassau. When I came back to London, I had a meeting with Shay. And I remember within 5 minutes of me getting on the call with Shay, Shay said, what's the promise? I said to Shay, I want to host a retreat. And Shay said to me, what's the promise of the retreat you're planning? And I was like, sorry? The what? And she said, and then she said, what's the promise? I said, well, we're going to go away. We're going to have fun. We're going to learn. Well, why should people sign up? So that's the first step of my 7-step framework. That was how I learned that I needed to have a promise. So I'm going to now take you through my 7-step framework. There's 7 P's. They're probably much more than that. But I work to my framework of 7 P's. The first P is, what is the promise? What's the promise? Why should people attend? So people are not coming to your event just to attend an event. They're coming to your event for a transformation. They're looking for something, and you are promising them the result of that thing. So what's that thing that you're promising them? What's the transformation? That's the seven. That's the first P, the promise. The promise. There's seven of them. The first is promise. What is the transformation that people are coming for? Looking at it in a different way, you could ask yourself, as a result of attending this 1 day workshop, this 2 day workshop, this boot camp, this retreat, as a result of people attending my event, what do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? So, what's the shift from where they are before they walk into the room to where they'll be when they leave the room? Now, whether they take action or not is maybe less to do with you than not, but while they're in your orbit, while they're in your space, what tools, what skills, what stories, what knowledge, what actionable steps will you guide them through to take them from where they are when they walk in to your desired or their desired result when they walk out of that room? That's the promise. And that's exactly what you're selling them. That's what you're selling them. The the format, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a retreat, whether it's a boot camp, that's simply a format. And people aren't coming to you for the format. The format may be attractive if you're taking them to a nice destination for 5 days to Monaco or Egypt or wherever. That's great. And that may be attractive, but it's unlikely to be the only reason, at least for serious partakers, to sign up. So it's important for you to get super clear on the promise, not just to know what it is, but also to be able to describe it. What will they be able to do at the end of attending your event? First P. The next P is the premise. The premise, the way I like to think about the premise is why. What do I mean by this? I mean, what's the message you're delivering? What's the story, or what are the stories you're going to share? So, for example, the premise of my events is I believe, and you could use this framework. What do you believe? What do you believe? Because that's the premise. I believe that within many age 50 plus women who have had a successful career lives a 5-year-old girl who's waiting to have her life lived. I believe that in many age 50 plus women who have built successful careers, either in the corporate world, either in the professional world, either in the business world, lives a 5-year-old girl who's waiting to have her life lived. The premise of coming to my events is that we find out what that 5-year-old girl wants and we give it to her. Now, my 5-year-old girl wants to speak on stages. My 5-year-old girl wants to travel the world. My 5-year-old girl wants to empower people. My 5-year-old girl wants to inspire people. My 5-year-old girl wants people to know that they are able to do that thing that's calling to them. That's the premise of everything I speak on. So, what's the premise for you? And my signature story is aligned with my premise about how I walked out of a 30-year corporate career, about how I walked out of a meeting. I had no plan. I literally just left because the 5-year-old girl got sick and tired. of waiting to have her life lived. And she pushed me out of that meeting room. Now, my story is about me leaving a meeting room at the junction where I had been in a corporate career for 30 years. That's unlikely to be your story. It may be, but it's quite unlikely to be your story. But your story will be that something happened. There was a turning point in your life where you knew, like you knew, like you knew that things had to change. And now maybe you also want to speak on stages. Some of my clients say to me, I want to build an online visibility platform. I want to share my expertise. I want to write books. I want to have a keynote talk. I want to run workshops. I want to have a training program. I want to go on podcasts. I want to have a TEDx talk. These are some of the outcomes that some of my clients say. But underpinning all that is the 5-year-old girl within them that's telling them that's what you want to do. At least that's what I believe in. So what do you believe in? What's the premise? What's your premise? It's important to get super clear on what that is. And you'll find as we go through these 7 Ps, you'll find that they all tie into each other. They're not standalone because your premise, or should I say your promise, will sit on your premise. So that's the second P, promise, premise. The third P is the person. So now you know who you want to, now you know now you know what you want people to know, to feel, and to do, promise. Now you know why, premise. The next thing is, well, who? Who is this most suited to? Now, my message could apply to anybody, male or female. And to be honest, maybe even at any age. But there's somebody that I am particularly called, there's somebody that I am passionate about speaking to more than the others. Now, could I speak to young men and women in their 20s? Yeah. Could I speak to young men and women in their 30s? Yeah. Could I speak to men and women in their 40s? Actually, I'm going to say young because, yeah, in your 40s, you're still young. Can I speak to young men and women in their 40s? Yes. In their 50s. The woman that I am most passionate about speaking to is probably in her 50s. She may be in her 40s. She's very unlikely to be in her 30s. Because the woman that I'm passionate about speaking to will be able to travel. Should have had a successful prior career. She's not just starting out. She's not just building. She's built. She's ready to pivot and to rebuild. She's got life experience that she wants to share. She's got wisdom. She's got knowledge that she wants to transfer to a new area of her life. Chances are she hasn't got young children because she can pick up and travel. I won't say at any time, but she's relatively flexible and in charge. She's in control of her own time. So chances are she hasn't got young. She may have teenagers, older teenagers. She may have children in their 20s, early 20s, but chances are her children are in their mid to late 20s and above. Chances are. What's my point? I know my person, but that's only the demographic. And that's why I've said a few times, chances are, because there'll be outliers. There'll be people who tick 3 or 4 boxes, but not one. And there'll be people who tick all 4 boxes, but aren't ideal. So it's not this or that. Sometimes it's this and that. And then we also have to, when we talk about the person, we also need to talk about the psychographic. So just as important, maybe even more important, to be honest, than her age and her status in life. And what even more important is, how does she feel? What's keeping her up at night? What does she want? What are her goals and dreams? What are her desires? What are her frustrations? What does she cry about? You may not want to speak to just women. You may be serving men and women. You may be serving just men. You may be serving young men. It doesn't really matter. The point is to find your person and to identify not just who they are, but how they feel and what they want. Because that will feed into the premise and the promise. So now I've said that there's seven. There's seven. There's seven. If I can count on one hand, on two hands, there's seven. We've dealt with three. We've talked about the promise, we've talked about the premise, and we've talked about the person for your in-person workshop, your program, your summit, your seminar, your conference, your retreat. The fourth P is the plan. Let's talk about the plan. The plan is the hard tangibles, if you like. So this includes things like, well, where will you host this? The venue, the location. If it's a one-day event, will it be, will it be in a hall? Will it be in your home? Will it be at a venue? Will it be in a hotel? Will it be in a training center? If it's a retreat, well, what's the country? What's the city? Is it in a hotel? Will you rent an Airbnb? All these are the tangibles. They also include the agenda, so the hard agenda, the logistics. And so you could think about the plan as the operational side of things. They also include things like the actual room. Well, what will you have water? You need water. To give them water, there needs to be water. If you're running an event that is dealing with feelings, you will need tissues, water, lighting. Where will people sit? The chairs, the tables, the actual, as I said, the actual tangibles. Also, things like the room temperature. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but one way to keep people alert and active and listening, especially after lunch, is to reduce the temperature in the room. Because otherwise it can get very warm after lunch. And when people get warm, sleep may happen. Let's just say sleep may happen. And you don't want people coming to your event falling asleep. So there are different ways. Obviously, you have to be a great speaker to keep people alive and alert and active. But also there are other things that you can do in the room. You can do exercises. Oh, by the way, that's part of the plan. The exercises, how will people sit, the arrangement, all that kind of, the logistics of things. That's all part of the plan. So that's number four. We've done promise, we've done premise, we've done person, we've done plan. Number five is the program. So the program is, what will you teach them? Or should I say, how will you teach them? So we talked about the promise. The promise is what they're going to learn. So the program really is, how will you deliver? That's a good way to put it. How will you deliver what they're going to learn? So will you have exercises? How will you set up the exercises? Will it be experiential? Will there be reading? Will there be watching? Will there be hearing? You probably know about, I think it is Brendan Burchard in his book. He talks about the five ways that people learn. Brendan Burchard in his book, I forget the name. I've got it right behind me, but I forget the name. The messenger. The Millionaire Messenger. That's the one. Millionaire Messenger. He talks about the five formats that people learn: reading, watching, experiencing, mastering, and hearing. And ideally, in your event, you want to use as many of these as possible so that you can tap into the different ways that people learn. Some people want PowerPoint slides, some people want exercises, or they learn better through exercises. Some are able to just sit and listen. And so it's great to tap into as many of these so you can pull in the entire audience through their own ideal way of learning. One way, actually no, I'll talk about this in the next pillar. So that's pillar 5: promise, premise, person, plan, program. Okay, that's what we've covered so far. So the program is, as I said, how will you deliver your content? That takes them from where they are when they walk into the room to where they desire to be when they leave the room. That's the program. Pillar number 6 is your powerful presence. Powerful presence. This is all about being magnetic on stage. And it doesn't actually have to be a physical stage. You could literally be sitting down, but it's still about how you, by the way, I don't advise you to sit down, at least not for the entire thing, because there's a power in your posture, and there's a power in how your voice moves people when you stand up. But it could be an event that you could be sitting down on a yoga mat, for example, cross legs. So do you and do what's required for your event and for your participants. But let's go back to the 6th pillar: powerful presence. This is all about how you move the room. This is all about the power of your voice. This is all about storytelling. And this is what I was about to mention in the previous pillar. One way that people learn that cannot be underestimated is through stories. So, you know how you have coaches or you have people who say, like Donald Miller talks about building a story brand. Les Brown teaches you how to share your story. That's where all that comes in. And that's why I said a few minutes ago, I said all these different pillars all fit into each other. There isn't one that stands alone. They all work like this. So developing a magnetic presence is developing a powerful presence is learning how to be a magnetic speaker. And part of being a magnetic speaker is learning how to use your voice, learning how to share stories, learning how to interact with the audience, learning how to ask questions, how to bring the audience in how to tell your story by the way that they feel is their story, how to move them through the power of your words. That's what developing a powerful presence is all about. So that's pillar number 6. Our final pillar is the price. Know your numbers. How much do you want to make from this event? How much are you going to spend? How much is it costing you for the venue, for the food, if you're providing food, for anything, any of the materials that you're going to give your participants, for any of the other associated costs involved in this? Get it all down and know your numbers and allow for the unexpected, because there's likely to be. So know your numbers, add everything in, don't exclude anything. Whether you are looking to, no matter what you're looking to make, it's important to know the bottom line. How much will I not spend above, right? What's my minimum? What's my target? What's my maximum? That sort of thing. It's important to know your numbers. And as we talk about knowing your numbers, I want to say also, I want to remind you that the event, your event, is not the end of, it's not the end of the journey. Your event is actually the doorway to the next step. Think about it as the doorway to the next step. So people, you don't want people to come to your event, have a good experience, and at the end of it, you simply say, well, thank you and goodbye. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. You want people to come to your event. Some will say thank you and goodbye, but you always want to give people the opportunity to carry on the journey with you, which means knowing the next step or knowing the next steps. The now what? Okay, so this has been good. Now what? Where do we go from here? Whether you're going to offer coaching, whether you're going to offer consultancy, whether you're offering a service, whether you're offering a mastermind, maybe even a boot camp, another workshop, whatever it is, however you're going to package what that next step is, you need to know about it before your event so that you can offer it to those who are ready to continue the journey with you at the event. So when I went to Lisa's retreat in Nassau, Bahamas, I remember that on day, I think it was not the last day, but the day before the last day, she offered us her next step, which was her certified transformational trainer program. I didn't take her up on that offer at the retreat, but I did afterwards. But the reason why I took her up on the offer afterwards was that she'd done a lot of the heavy lifting of telling us about it at the event. So when I was ready to sign up, it wasn't something I was only just hearing about. The event, her talking about it at the retreat in Nassau, gave me the opportunity to go home and think about it. And I didn't actually sign up. I think I signed up like the following year. I didn't sign up that same year. I signed up the following year. But when I signed up, I had learned enough about it that I didn't have lots of questions. It was really literally about, well, how do I sign up? But as I said, that's only because she had done the heavy lifting at the retreat. So even if people don't sign up immediately, do not be disheartened. If people don't sign up for your next program immediately at your event, do not be disheartened. You have planted a seed and you don't know when that seed will be ready to be picked, as it were, ready to bloom. So your job is to plant the seed. Your job is to make the invitation. Your job is to make multiple invitations and then wait and see when each person is ready to carry on the journey with you. So I hope this has been helpful. I am hosting an event on the 6th of March in Paris. If you would love to attend an event to not just learn how to develop a powerful presence, we talked about powerful presence, to not just learn how to develop the premise, i.e., your message, but also to learn how to host your own event. So develop the premise, develop a powerful presence, and also learn how to host your own signature event using the 7Ps. And I invite you to join us in Paris on the 6th of March. Well, you'll probably arrive on the 5th of March, but the event is a 3-day event from the 6th to the 8th. So Friday the 6th, Saturday the 7th, and Sunday the 8th is the last day in Paris. I want to invite you to join us. If you want to hear more, please click on the link below, comment below, and I will reach out and I'll send you my Calendly link, and we can set up a call so I can share more details and see if you're suitable for this particular opportunity. So just to recap on the 7Ps, it's the promise. We talked about the promise. We talked about the premise. We talked about the person. We talked about the plan. We talked about the program. We talked about developing a powerful presence, and we talked about the price. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. That's my doorbell, but ignore it because I'm not expecting anybody. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. And one last thing, we also talked about the next steps. Please do not ignore the next steps when you host an event. That is critical. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye for now. Bye-bye.